Liz and I finally, I think, have accomplished all of our outfits. Nick is so angry, by the way.
Might still change. I just have 4 outfits. It might still change. I might get another one. I don't know. He's angry?
He's like, I don't understand how you do not have something to wear in this closet full of clothes. And I was like, I don't need you to understand. You're not a female. You will never understand why I need a new outfit. I need 3 new outfits, actually, for the 2 days. Mm-hmm. So.
Also, it's not your concern.
He can get over it. And my son said, Mom, stop ordering stuff to the house. And I was like, and Nick was like, don't tell your mother what to do. She's an adult. I was like,
if this is your money, then maybe you could tell me what to do. But until you make your own money, leave it be.
Yep. So we are very, very excited. Little stressed out, but it's going to be amazing. It's God's plan. It's in his hands now.
Yep.
We are surrendering, which is one of the messages for the weekend, to surrender.
Yes. It's really funny because Vince reminded us yesterday that, you know, in our mind, and also we are certainly more perfectionists, thinking through every detail. It'll be like 5 a.m. I'm like, oh, and this, and messaging Becca, we got to do this. Oh, what do you think about this? By the way, I ordered 30 gift bags now to have a testimonial room and all the things. And so just trying to think, you know, of every single little detail. Details matter is one of our values at FitMom. And so, you know, it's kind of like you're throwing a wedding. I think there's going to be more people at this event than there were at my wedding because we had a small wedding, which is great. Only I don't have a wedding planner. So we are the wedding planners. Event planners.
Yeah.
So.
I'm more stressed about this than I was about my wedding, I think. Because your wedding's also like, who cares? It's your day. Screw everyone else. And this is like, no, this is about everyone else that's there. So yeah, I think I just care more.
So we're getting airbrush at 5:15 a.m. both mornings. Fantastic. And you guys, I'm like putting together the script. I'm like reading certain things and already crying, like tearing up, thinking about like the excitement of Art introducing us and then like the song that we've gone back and forth to like pick out and like that embodies like us as business partners and our business and growth. And I'm like, just so it's like happy tears, you know, but I'm definitely emotional. So please don't make fun of me. I'll just be in my feels all weekend.
I'm one of those people. I think like there's certain things that make me cry. I just get very joyful and happy in those situations. Sad things make me cry. I don't cry from happy things. I cry from sad things. Like I think I've always been like that. And we've had very sad things happen recently. I've cried a lot this last weekend. Our dog passed away. We put our dog down technically, but I cried for like you know, those days where you cry so much that your eyes hurt and you get like a headache. That was that day on Saturday.
Yeah.
So I think we've gotten some crying out for a while. And who knows? Who knows what's going to happen that day? It's going to be crazy. I'm so excited. I am so grateful, I think, also just like humbled. Like it's going to be an amazing weekend. So excited if you're coming. We will see you there if you are listening to this. And yeah, let's dive into today's topic because I think today's going to be a good one. We talk a lot about liver health. We talk a lot about detoxification abilities. And I think it can be really tricky because so for example, with the gut is very commonly felt when there is something wrong, right? Like you get bloating, you get distension, you get food sensitivities, you get, you know, constipation, whatever it might be. The liver's a little bit different. Like in more, I don't even want to say extreme examples, but you can commonly get gallbladder pain. That is something that can very much so happen when the liver is stressed because the liver, I actually have a diagram that I got of the liver and the gallbladder obviously within it. And like compared to the liver, the gallbladder is so small, but it's basically inside the liver. Like it's like right there next to it. It's so close. And so when the liver is burdened, you're going to feel it in the gallbladder and you might get gallbladder pain, which is typically like left side pain, tightness, right side pain, tightness in your chest, shoulder blade pain sometimes. And so the liver itself, though, you don't typically feel like most people don't have, some people do say they have that pain, but like the liver, you don't get liver pain when there's something wrong. So we wanted to talk about the signs that often come up that the liver is stressed and burdened and dealing with more than maybe it can handle in that moment. So yeah.
And I think that there's definitely going to be some sneaky signs in here. So, you know, some individuals, they'll think, so I was doing a Instagram live with a doctor who is trained conventionally, of course, and respectfully, he shared that, you know, they don't believe that we need to be supporting our liver. because the liver detoxifies. And I'm like, I would beg to disagree, right? We can agree to disagree on this topic, because when you think about all of the things that the liver does, I mean, it's involved in over 500 different functions in the body. It takes on a tremendous burden, especially from the shit food that people eat in our society, from the environmental toxins that, I don't know, tinfoil hat, maybe they're intentionally spraying all over. Have you seen these dust storms that are happening in Arizona and all these other places? Like, all these strange things going on with our weather suddenly. And, so whatever, all of these chemicals and toxins that we're exposed to. And then you think about construction, right? So we actually had a practitioner who, she was a client of mine, then worked for us for a period of time. And we've kind of followed her story and kept up with her since. Her and her entire family got very sick from mold in their house shopping. And she did a post on all of these homes, some of them being new homes, and the mold that they found within these homes. And so when you think about all of the different factors, I would say that when somebody is dealing with a lot of these signs and symptoms, and especially with the GI issues, lots of constipation, things back up in the system, they go into back in line, recirculation to the liver, you need to support your liver. And a lot of the things that we do to support our liver are actually natural things. So sure, maybe they don't believe that, supplements like Tudka and ox bile and different, herbs and teas are necessary. But then why are you working in sick care and your clients are still sick, right? Whereas in functional medicine, we have multiple cases where we've helped reverse Crohn's, colitis, IBD, right? GI doctors shocked. What have you done? Tell me how you did this. So, to each their own on this, but you can also go through some of these and say, hey, maybe I do, because I am traveling a lot, or I'm exposed to a lot of these things, or I drink a lot of alcohol and I don't want to give that up necessarily, need to support my liver. So I'm going to give you the 7 signs that we're going to talk about, and then we'll go into each, more specifically. So digestive distress, that can be anything from bloating, gas, constipation, diarrhea, heartburn, acid reflux, bile reflux, skin changes. This is a big one. I think that's going to shock a lot of you guys. Hormonal imbalances, especially estrogen dominance, low energy, brain fog, just chronic fatigue, feeling like, you've not slept when you have slept, or you're sleeping a lot but don't feel rested. Unexplained weight struggles. So unexplained weight loss or unexplained weight gain. Chemical and alcohol sensitivity. You got that horrible hangover, even though you drink 1 or 2 glasses of wine. And then also mood shifts. And this is definitely heavily, if you look at Chinese medicine, associated with fear, anger, and anxiety.
Yep. So let's dive back in up at the top, digestive distress. So we've talked a lot about how the liver produces bile, and the gallbladder is where it stores that bile. So bile helps digest fats, carry toxins through your stool. And if your liver is sluggish, this is where those toxins and the things that should be broken down, fat should be broken down into fatty acids, all of those processes don't happen as quickly as they should. When you consume a meal, that recycling of bile happens multiple times from one meal alone. It should happen multiple times. If that is sluggish, if it is sludge-like, if you have stones, well, you're going to be dealing with bloating. You're going to be dealing with constipation because it's not going to be moving as well. Often we see floating stools, we will see kind of like the oiliness on the top of the, water in the toilet bowl, like a film almost in little droplets. That is undigested fats in your stool. Fatty meals might make you feel nauseous or really like heavy. And sometimes you might notice even light colored or clay-like stools, which is basically a red flag for bile flow. And so digestive issues, whenever we see chronic constipation, yes, the gut can be at play, but I would say more often than not, the liver and gallbladder are more at play with chronic constipation than the gut alone, because of how much they support the digestive process and allowing things to move properly through the digestive tract.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about bile, for example, what we would call this is your built-in detergent. It's a natural antimicrobial, but it's a natural laxative because it stimulates motilin, that motility hormone. And when we think about a lot of the issues that people have digestively, especially in the small intestine, where they're seemingly blowing up like a balloon, with everything. This is because of a bile issue, and also that allowed bacteria. So it's to overgrow. So it's a chicken and an egg scenario here. So I think it's pretty negligent, especially if you look at the gut liver axis, which Dr. Zach was very nice, but when I started speaking about this, it was almost like a deer in the headlights. And I'm like, this is a very intimate connection. It's very cyclical. They're in communication through the lumen all the time. And all of these different valves and portal veins, like, how can you not think that we need to support the liver gallbladder and this bile flow, right? Or other hormones that maybe because bile is recycled too quickly, it's not allowed to do its job. Then we have these other hormones that come in and it thinks mistakenly we need more bile. So a lot of times you can get like a flooding of bile to the small intestine. And that's what's happening in SIBO cases where it's more on the diarrhea side. So there's a lot of things that we got to look at here. And when we think about, everything else in the environment that we've already talked about, how does that impact our skin? And so we have to think about your skin as your largest surface organ. So we have a lot of detox organs besides the liver, but we think about the largest surface organ, and that is going to be the skin. And so when your body cannot properly detoxify, whether that is pooping every day, urinating, right? Going through all of the processes for metabolized hormones and food and toxins in the liver to get everything out, that shit's going to come out your skin. Literally, like it's going to have to come out somewhere. So it's going to exit there. And a lot of times we'll see this not only with acne, that's like on the back or your jawline, but we're also going to see rashes, hiving, or itching, and a lot of overall itching. Even people who have like these histamine issues or mast cells, this is an immunological issue. Your immune system is trying to do its job, but because it can't, since there's so many clogs in the drain, it's going to show up externally as a cry for help from this, what people would say is just total body itching, right? We can also see eczema, psoriasis flare-ups. You can, think about, for example, people who go through cyclical acne flare-ups. Yes, we say that this is hormonal, but what's the problem? Is it the imbalance of the hormone or the fact that hormones are imbalanced because we can't detoxify properly?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, that brings us to the next one in terms of your hormone imbalances. I have an HRT guide that I'm finishing up, and I have like 10 commandments of HRT. And one of them is you have to support your liver when you're on HRT because you are bringing in exogenous hormones to the body. You're asking it. And a lot of women actually go from 0 to 100. They go from no hormones to now they're bringing in all of the hormones, and they might be starting at high doses. And you think your body's just like used to processing all of that. It hasn't done that in potentially years. And so you need to be putting something in place to where your liver is supporting the breakdown of estrogen that it has to go through and the aromatization that happens from testosterone into estrogen so that you don't just end up with this estrogen dominance. How many women we talk to that are like, I went on HRT, I'm bloated, I have breast tenderness, I have gas, I have digestive issues now, I have acne again, I'm, moody all the time now. It's like, because your body was not used to these hormones, you might be overly sensitive to them, and you bring them in and you're not supporting your body to process them properly. And so the liver plays a huge role in specifically breaking down estrogen. And when it's burdened, we almost always see PMS symptoms, heavy periods, breast tenderness, worsening perimenopause symptoms. And men may experience low testosterone or estrogen dominance signs like stubborn belly fat. Like you cannot have a beautiful, harmonious hormonal profile and a super stressed out liver at the same time. You just can't. And so this is, we'll go through some options, but this is where I think if you bring in exogenous hormones, you need to at least have like a liver blend, liver nutrients, or I prefer putting in like a calcium deglucarate, sulforaphane, and or DIM, depending on what that person's predispositions are, which is ideal world, why I like having a Dutch test or genetics testing on people before they go on HRT.
Yeah, I think that the order that you put the HRT in matters for sure. And then watching some of those 5Bs that we talk about with estrogen and just really going low and slow because we've seen so many people become watery and extremely bloated after they've done so much work. And it's just really sad to see that. And I think it's also very, again, I would just say negligent when you're looking at other med spas or even just doctors, right? Let's say like an OBGYN gives you estrogen and progesterone. Hopefully you're not doing Primpro, right? You're actually taking Prometrium and estradiol, but they put you on these things and they're not rechecking or checking in with you. It's just like, here you go, have that prescription forever. Well, even when you're taking hormones, it needs to be adjusted. Every 3-6 months, you want to be looking at how your symptoms are and adjusting according to that. Yes, we can look at labs, and I can think that that is sometimes important because you want to catch, I would say the argument for labs, in my opinion, around HRT is that you want to catch something going overtly high before it's been high for a while and now causing a lot of other impacts, right? So, and this could be anything in terms of really high progesterone. I've seen that with insulin resistance. Okay, I never had insulin resistance before, but now I'm taking 400 milligrams of progesterone and my insulin is in the 20s, right? So I think watching symptoms is very, very important, but also checking labs so that you're not getting this imbalanced picture for too long. Because I think a lot of places will just give you the prescription and say, see you later, keep paying us to refill it, right? I digress. Next thing we move on to is energy and brain fog. So when we think about toxins, right, and improper elimination, all of that stuff is going to back up, right? And this clogs not only just the detox pathways, bile ducts, making things run, sluggish and kind of slow everything down, but it impairs our mitochondria from producing energy. These are the factories, the energy factories of our cells. And when this is impaired, because again, it's not just the things that you think about. It's also pesticides from our produce. It's mold and mycotoxins, like I mentioned, plastic particles that are endocrine disruptors or, estrogen mimicking chemicals, things from receipts, unemotional weight of unresolved trauma, all of this other stuff in conjunction with everything else that you're putting into your body, on your body that might not be, super clean or low toxic. Now you wonder why you have chronic fatigue. You can't think straight because things are crossing the blood-brain barrier. If it's not coming out your skin, it's going into the bloodstream, crossing the blood-brain barrier. And so you just feel like low grade, I can't function. I've had people tell me, I was never someone who struggled to focus or get my job done and be productive. I don't even recognize myself. Like I've always been that A performer. And now I feel like I'm foggy, I'm forgetful. I can't focus on anything, really to save my life or save my job. And so that is another really big one. And I think that you've also got it with that. Look at what your food quality is, what your sleep quality is. There's other factors for sure. But certainly when we see chronic fatigue, chronic constipation, some of those relentless digestive issues or SIBO that keeps coming back, like Becca said before, a big part that we look at is gut liver. And that's why also we start there a lot of times before we start with eradication agents or anything like, to address bacteria in the gut.
So the next one is unexplained weight struggles. Our liver accounts for probably about 20 to 30% of your metabolic rate on a day-to-day basis because it regulates a lot of things. We've already talked about hormones. And when you have hormone imbalances, higher estrogen levels, estrogen dominance, that can cause more fat deposition in the body. We talked about bile flow when you are not processing things properly via the bile flow and toxins excreting out. Well, you're going to get toxin accumulation, and the body is trying to store those toxins not in the bloodstream, not in the lymphatic system. So guess what? It stores it in fat. It creates more fat to do that. And then it regulates blood sugar. So something that a lot of people don't realize is that the liver regulates blood sugar. It acts kind of like a blood sugar bank. So you have two places in your body that can store blood sugar and glucose ultimately, the liver and your muscle tissue. And your muscle stores a heck of a lot more than your liver. Your liver, I believe, only stores about 100 grams a day. Your muscle can store up to like 300 to 400 grams if you have a lot of muscle tissue. And so the problem is when your liver is really stressed out, if you're eating excess glucose that's getting stored in the liver as glycogen, and in a healthy person, you fast, you go without eating, in between meals, during exercise, the liver basically withdraws that glycogen and converts it back to glucose to keep blood sugar steady. And this prevents these really big blood sugar spikes or crashes, right? And so when the liver is stressed out, this, liver is overloaded with fat, which happens in non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. It happens with high triglycerides. It happens with, diabetes. The liver can't store glycogen effectively. So instead of releasing steady glucose, it dumps glucose erratically into the bloodstream, which raises blood sugar when it shouldn't. And this over-release means the pancreas has to pump out more insulin resistance. See where I'm going with this? Insulin resistance. And now we're diabetic, right? And so the liver plays such a big role in regulating blood sugar and blood glucose. And when the liver is stressed out, this is where we see people that are not overweight, that technically eat healthy and exercise, but are stressed out of their minds. They're not sleeping. They're exposed to a bunch of stuff. They have really high blood sugars because of the liver and how the liver plays this pivotal role in regulating blood glucose. And when it can't, because it's dealing with a bunch of other stuff, it does these dumps of glucose and it keeps you nice and irregular in terms of your blood sugar levels.
Yeah. So speaking of dumping, let's talk about mast cells and histamines because this is going to be that chemical and alcohol sensitivity. So if you ever just feel like wrecked after a glass of wine or you're flushing, right? You're getting really red in the face. I had a friend growing up and she's like, yeah, I'm definitely allergic to alcohol because I get red from it every time I drink it. I was like, and hot and like, well, maybe you probably shouldn't drink it. You know what I mean? But when we think about this, you can also have other things showing this too. So let's say you walk through Ulta and it's that perfume aisle, or like, I forgot where I was earlier this morning. Oh, I got my blood work done this morning, and the phlebotomist, her perfume was like, she put the whole dang bottle on herself. You know, it's just one of those things like, oh, get me out of here. But it could be just even some of these like tiny exposures, even caffeine for some individuals. Medications, right? It really just depends upon how sensitive you are and what level of, let's say, like mast cell activation you're in. So mast cells are immune cells that release histamine when your body senses a threat. Okay. So too much histamine equals inflammation, and that gives you itchiness, flushing, gut issues, anxiety, migraines. But your liver is one of the main things that help us clean this up, right? The histamine cleanup crew. So it uses different enzymes to do this. Everything we do in the body that has to be broken down is enzyme based. So we have DAO, diamine oxidase enzyme, and then HNMT, histamine N-methyltransferase. And so if your mast cells are in overdrive because of things we've mentioned before, mold and mycotoxins, plastics, parabens, parasites, toxins, infections, stress, all of those things, histamine pours out or dumps like a fire hose. And so that floods the liver and stresses it out, which is already trying to juggle and handle everything else in your life. And then things go haywire. And so I think this is really important to kind of go back and think about bioflow, how we are managing our inflammation, our exposures. Maybe this is managing your diet a little bit more, or picking and choosing when you're going to expose yourself to these things so that you can keep inflammation at bay, because this mast cell liver loop needs to be supported. And this is where we've had many conversations before. If you know this, yes, there's supplements, there's low histamine diets, there's all things that you can do. But at the end of the day, it's very immunological. And so I think that if you are getting these signs, think of those as red flags from your liver. Somebody said to me before, I don't know why I got like this headache and total body itching. They were taking quercetin to manage this. And then she went out and she had alcohol and then responded really negatively and never had that reaction in the past. What we identified for her was a couple of things. Number one, she was taking methylated B vitamins that were causing the itching. And then she was taking the quercetin to address the itching. But quercetin is more of like I gave this analogy earlier to Becca when I was talking about mast cell, because we're seeing it so much more. And I thought this was really great. So you have a fireman who is there and he's going to put out this fire. He's isolating it, right? But that can be what quercetin does. You have perilla-seed. Think of that as your fire marshal who's there to look at regulations and rules so that the fire doesn't begin in the first place, so that we're being more preventative rather than reactive. And I think that's a really good point for a lot of people. If you've not heard of perilla-seed, it's great for mopping up spike proteins and helping clear the body of spike proteins. And a large part of why we're seeing upregulation with mast cells and all these histamine issues since COVID is the spike proteins. And again, the immunological issue. So I think that's a big point for you to take away. If you've had these issues recently in the last 5 years, you've had COVID as a sickness and or vaccination, you've got to be really thinking about, how do I help my body handle this to bring back the homeostasis and the immunological response so that you're not constantly flaring.
Yep. So mood shifts is the last one. And this one kind of surprises a lot of people. And I think it does have a lot to do with toxin exposure. But another big piece to understand is that how we detoxify and process and break down our serotonin and our dopamine and our norepinephrine and epinephrine is via methylation of these neurotransmitters through the liver, partially. And so if you have a really stressed out liver, you're going to get a much less smooth breakdown and transition of these neurotransmitters. And that leads to backups, that leads to highs and lows. And so people have these, irritability, anxiety that feels like it comes out of nowhere, the low mood or depression, especially paired with fatigue. And when detox slows, the brain chemistry feels it, right? This comes back to the mitochondrial aspect of when the liver's stressed out. It's going to stress out the cells and their ability to produce energy and their ability to keep things nice and steady and stable. And so people feel that in their mood, right? We do a lot of kind of opening up pathways and heavy support of the liver and the gallbladder and that process. And it's crazy. The transition just in a few weeks that some people have in terms of energy, in terms of mental, clarity and brain fog, in terms of digestion, just by supporting heavily the liver piece of things. And so we just talked about the 7 pieces. How do you support, right? So we're going to kind of high level this because we do a lot of podcasts on the liver. We do a lot of posts about liver health. But foods is obviously, the low hanging fruit, the things that we are exposed to on a day-to-day basis. Bitter foods and bile stimulating foods. So beets are a great option, and you can do beet kvass is very helpful, specifically in stimulating bile and thinning bile. The juice of beet greens. So you can even do like a beet powder. Beet powders are great. They're also great for nitric oxide. But beets are great for being kind of that bitter food to stimulate. Dandelion greens are amazing. We love dandelion root tea. We'll do that often in this process with clients. Ginger also has been shown to be very therapeutic with its high antioxidant content. Citrus, also a very high antioxidant, helps with cleansing of the liver. Dark leafy greens have those plant chlorophylls that help to cleanse the blood by neutralizing toxins. Cruciferous vegetables are great for that estrogen detoxification. Berries have very high antioxidant levels. Garlic and animal protein, specifically the liver, supports we talk about that all the time, raw liver even, or beef liver capsules from 100% grass-fed cows can be an excellent source to nourish the liver. Wow. Nourish the liver. I've got a lot of tongue twisters today in this podcast. And then hydration. We are mostly water, guys. I don't know if you realize that. And if you are chronically dehydrated, don't even do anything else. Just go drink more water.
I love people coming with chronic constipation, drinking 36, 40 ounces of water a day, no electrolytes. And I'm like,
you just paid a lot of money for me to tell you need to drink more.
Well, no, I think it's I think we found one boulder that we can easily, resolve. But so we actually have a liver guide. We can put that in the link in the show notes, and you can reference that because there's so many things that we break down here in terms of, your hydration. The solution to pollution is dilution. So if you're not doing that, like Becca said, just stop right there and don't worry about anything else. The other big thing is removing a lot of the inflammatory foods and a lot of these fried foods, trans fats, things that are in, all of these packaged processed foods. So many people don't take time to flip it over and look at the label. There are a lot of health foods, healthier brands out there that are still using crappy oils, right? So I really would say that you're not going to get rid of this 100%. And I don't believe that you need to get rid of it 100%. But I do think that if it's something that you're putting into your everyday life and routine, that all stacks up and matters, right? So things that we want to include, more of are going to be those 1 ingredient whole foods, things that generally don't have a label. Think about your oils from a standpoint of ghee, tallow, olive oil, MCT oil, avocado oil, right? A lot of those things can be really, really helpful. And then really try to minimize the things that have a lot of the canola, soybean, vegetable, corn oil, all those types of things. If you do not have a gallbladder, you should be supplementing with bile support. If you have a gallbladder that's been removed and you have watery loose stools that are urgent, you seemingly cannot tolerate fats, it's okay to get pissed off at your doctor for not telling you these things that they should, common sense, tell you when they take out this organ, that while they tell you there's no repercussions, there's actually a lot of research and evidence to show us that there are many repercussions of not having that gallbladder because it stores and concentrates your bile, concentrates it by 21%. Okay, so that's very, very strong compared to what your liver is just dripping throughout the day, right? And as Becca mentioned before, every time that you eat, bile should be circulating through that small intestine 15 to 17 times. If you don't have that flow moving, properly, you can get that dumping, and then you've got these watery loose stools. So ox bile, I've had clients that I've had to take to 500 milligrams to 1 milligram, or 500 micrograms to 1 milligram. So 500 micrograms to 1,000 micrograms to give you, oh my God, I'm messing this up. 500 milligrams to 1 gram, okay? Without a gallbladder. We like ox bile in the form of Beta Plus, Bile Plus by Eminent Nutrition. It's a really nice blend that he put together. You can do ox bile 500, right? It really is going to be person independent on what they need. But if you've had your gallbladder removed, strongly suggest that you are supporting with bile. Magnesium, apple cider vinegar, TUDCA, beef liver capsules, all of these other things can be, very, very helpful to the body. I think it really depends upon the person. Don't want to go in with overkill. I would definitely start by cleaning up your diet, start with good quality water and electrolytes and those types of things. Add in a lot of the things that Becca mentioned food-wise, and then just reference the pack in the show notes so that you have this kind of laid out for you. Because your liver, while it is an amazing organ in the body, it is really kind of an unsung hero because it plays a role in everything. And by the way, we kind of neglected to speak on the spleen, but the spleen is what cleans your white blood cells. Like it has to filter your blood, and your gallbladder, your liver, and your spleen are very intimately connected as well. And so without supporting the liver, you're not supporting the spleen. And that from a chronic illness standpoint is not a good thing either. So make sure you reference those links in the show notes. And if you liked this episode, rate, review, subscribe, and share the show.